You see, I believe social media's impact on business is actually causing a revolution in a lot of ways. And I think many of you would probably agree. Those of us who are engaged in social media would certainly agree, and I think those 16% of CEOs who have decided that they need to be busy in social media would believe this as well. And I think most of you perhaps believe the increasing amount of social media adopters is evidence of this view that I'm about to share. I think the thread that most succinctly links us together is that we all see a dramatic shift in the way consumers think. Some companies have already begun to change the way they do business and begin to do business in a different way. And I think more importantly, they're going to have to run their businesses different tomorrow and in the future. You look at things like, I know it sounds like a cliche, but you can't avoid looking at things like the 99% protests, the Arab Spring, the Occupy movement. And we've all heard these examples over and over again as evidence for the effect that social media is having on the world around us. People are learning differently. They're acting differently. They expect things to be done differently by the companies they choose to work for and the companies they choose to be customers of. And this has, I think, a lot to do with what you've often heard of as the democratization of the internet. I think it's amazing, I think it's wonderful, and I think it's an amazing phenomenon, and I'm happy that I have the opportunity to be in a leadership position at such an important time of change. In fact, I mentioned to you that social media is in some ways causing a revolution, and I believe, in fact, that we're in the convergence of two revolutions. A social revolution, the way people feel about businesses, the role businesses play in our community, as well as a technology revolution. And I think the impact of this change is being felt across the entire world in all sorts of businesses. The expectations on businesses have changed. The expectations of what leaders do in those businesses is changing very, very quickly. Consumers want to discuss what they like. Do I like the iPhone, the Android? They want to discuss in public the companies that they support, the companies they hate or dislike. They all want to be a part of that conversation, and they want to be heard. And I think more importantly, people want to listen more to their friends and peers and people that they've met through social media than they do about companies' marketing or anything along those lines. And I think what's important here, and I think the biggest challenger that the world has seen, I'll say since the 18th century, even since the Industrial Revolution, is manifested in one word. And that word is transparency. So when I say I have no choice but to engage in social media on behalf of our business, it's because transparency, being transparent, is in the DNA that has defined ING Direct. It's what we're all about. It was a part of our DNA from our inception 16 years ago. ING Direct is built on a values platform of honesty, great value, great service, and transparency. And I think that foundation and the aspiration of complete transparency with all of our stakeholders has allowed us to be social and really be a culture-driven organization. You know, what social media has done really is provide us and companies like us with the tools to essentially walk the talk, but to walk it taller and louder than we ever could have imagined. I mean, social media and the way the internet is and the technology revolution that we're in has created a real megaphone for companies that want to do business the way we do, and we're built the way we were built. Social media has really become a natural extension of who we are, and it was really a no-brainer for our business to experiment in that space and begin to evolve there. Another, because there are some strategists in the room, and I've often discussed with our head of strategy and our strategy team that the traditional way of doing strategy really is dead. So welcome to the revolution and what I like to call social business. And I don't think I invented the term social business. I heard it before, I heard it after, but I think it does really contextualize what's going on in the world today, and either there are books out on it or I've spoken to people who are writing books about the topic of social business. But social business affects all parts of a business model. It's not just your CEO tweets. It affects everything about a business. The way an organization creates, the way an organization delivers, and the way an organization captures value with all of its stakeholders. The way a business talks with its employees, the way it talks with its customers, its involvement in the community, how it shares with regulators, with government, and yes, of course, the way leaders behave in those organizations is changing because of social business. You know, the expectation today from consumers is more real time than ever. I mean, people want information now. How to communicate, how business leaders communicate with all these stakeholders, I think, is changing pretty dramatically. I mean, no longer do we have the time to craft and reconcile separate communications. Here's my one message I'm going to talk to shareholders, my community, my employees, my customers. Because of technology, because of social business, we have to be able to communicate with all of them at the same time, which is why transparency is so important. So if you're experiencing roadblocks in getting your leadership to see value in social media, here is the message that I would take home with you today. Social media really in no way is the problem. I think the problem lies in the reluctance of businesses to see the value of transparency and how their business models, the products they deliver, how they interact with all stakeholders needs to change in order to allow for this level of transparency. And I think social media works when we're able to, the way we talk about it in our businesses, when you're able to tear down the walls of your building and let the world look inside, whether it's government, whether it's a customer, whether it's an employee, whatever it is, as if the world was reading your emails or sitting in your meetings. And to allow this to happen, we need to be proud and stand behind whatever they happen to see in terms of our business. I mean, how comfortable do you think in the company you work for that you would let a customer just be a fly on the wall and hear what it is that you talk about, particularly when you're talking about pricing, or if you're talking about compensation, or all those types of matters. And I think this really is the future and what we mean when we say social business. So if you believe what I know to be true, then you'll begin to understand why it's a real no-brainer for me and for ING Direct to take time, to make time, to tweet, to be on Facebook, to blog, and to connect. I'm going to give you a couple concrete examples in a few moments. Before I do, I'll just share a couple other insights. In 2010, you guys may have all heard of Amber MacArthur. Those of you familiar with social media, and all of you probably are, she wrote an article about CEOs just under 2 years ago, discussing that business leaders who are active online and concluded that less than 8% of CEOs are active in social media. And I already quoted the IBM article, which says now 16% of CEOs, so it sounds like CEOs are headed in the right direction. But she went out of her way to mention specific CEOs that seem to be making a big difference for the business. She talked about names like Tony Hsieh from Zappos.com, Martha Stewart, Michael Arrington from TechCrunch, Tim O'Reilly from O'Reilly Media, and to my surprise, she also included me on that list. This summer, I was fortunate to find my name on a Forbes list of CEOs who tweet with the likes of Indian tycoon Anand Mahendra, Mark Cuban, Michael Dell, and Richard Branson. So look, some of us in, well, I guess you guys call it the C-suite. We don't kind of talk that way, but some of us are, well, I would say doing it right, but I think at least we're doing it, right? So we're trying, and I think we're evolving and certainly communicating and getting a lot of room and leeway from our customers and everybody who's listening. So what I thought might be helpful to actually give you some, is to give you some concrete examples and show some examples of some CEOs that I follow and see what they're doing in social media. CEO.com shared these examples recently, and I think it's a great reference point, particularly for those of you who are trying to convince your leadership or the companies that hire you to help them with social strategy to get and spend more time and prioritize social media. So I don't have a clicker, so I think this is the moment where I go, please change the slide. All right, Michael Dell. Now, I think we'd all agree Michael Dell is probably a pretty busy guy. And this is an example not only of his pretty extensive Twitter following, but I think more importantly, his extreme openness in social media. He has no qualms about speaking his mind in this very public forum. In this particular case, he's actually criticizing his competition very much in the face of HP when they announced that they were leaving the PC business. Michael Dell clearly has nothing to hide, and I think in many ways that's why he and his organization are successful. I personally wouldn't choose the path of Michael Dell in terms of calling out my competition that directly in a public forum, but it works for him. Next slide. Marissa Mayer, who I think we all heard is Yahoo's, relatively new CEO in the US, was also an early adopter of social media. She adopted, I think she started on Twitter in 2008, and not only uses Twitter to share her news with her followers about becoming the CEO of Yahoo, but also doesn't hesitate to share her very personal views, which oddly enough were controversial, about her being pregnant. She also, when you follow, she's just not an active tweeter, but she's kind of interesting to watch as the new leader of Yahoo, as new people join the company, as she announces promotions about senior leaders in the Yahoo organization who have been very successful, and a real sense of optimism about the future of Yahoo, without saying, I'm optimistic for the future of Yahoo. Next slide, please. This is Omar Ishrak. He's the Medtronic CEO, and Medtronic, if you don't know, is a medical supply company. They also do research and development, and actually a pretty interesting company. And I think what I really appreciated about this example is his willingness to reach out to customers in a very, very direct way. In this case, when he's using Twitter for a business announcement, he receives a tweet and he takes time to answer back directly to whether it's a customer or someone who buys his products or a physician or whatever the case may be. Also, I've had the opportunity to meet Mike Pratt, who's right here, I believe, in Vancouver. He's the president and chief operating officer of Best Buy Canada, and he's also very interactive with customers about new products. And in particular, I like, and I've learned and even adopted a little bit, his use of video in responding to specific customer questions or complaints or questions about products and those types of things. Next slide, please. This is the CEO of American Family Mutual Insurance Group, and this says he tweets multiple times a day, but not to the point where he becomes annoying. And that's someone tweeting about him, and I found that very funny. And I sure hope that I don't come across as being annoying. I suppose in social media land, you can always just not listen anymore. But I like that he shares more than just about insurance. And actually, if he just communicated about insurance, I sure as I wouldn't follow him, with all due respect to any insurance people in the room. This is not the most exciting industry. I apologize. Banking's a little more exciting, a lot more exciting, I think. So he shared his views about sports, politics, and in particular, in this example, he's sharing the results of the study I just told you about earlier, where only 4% of CEOs are actually on Twitter. I'm going to share a couple examples of what we do at ING Direct and what I do in particular. Here you go. Thank you. People always ask me, where the heck do you find the time? And I'll tell you right here, and I don't know if we have anyone in the room, but there are tools that are available that make it a lot easier for me. In fact, I'm quite a big user of Hootsuite, which allows me to schedule tweets, so I can tweet when I have time, I can write things down, I do when I have time, I can schedule so they come out in a less annoying sort of pattern of tweets. I use Hootsuite to schedule and share articles. For example, if I'm reading, on the weekend, I even have colleagues and friends who share me articles of interest that are in line with the types of things I like to share, and I schedule those tweets on a daily basis, as well as tweeting throughout the day about certain insights I have, a fantastic meeting I just had, an interview I just did that I thought was particularly interesting or insightful. I usually do this in the morning when I have a little bit more time, and then I share these sporadic thoughts throughout the day. In this example, let me see here. Yeah, in this example, I just finished playing ice hockey with the ING Direct. We have an ING Direct pickup game in Toronto. I help put my kids to bed and stuff like that. And I was watching the Monday Night Football game last week, if any of you guys happen to watch that. And I felt violently compelled to share my thoughts on how disappointing I thought that game was, which I don't think it was my tweet, but I think it was everybody's tweet that sort of led to the settling of the referee strike in the NFL. Next slide. I do spend some time on Facebook, mostly sharing quotes or funny pictures. I like that one, our little message about I found the problem. We earn money 5 days a week, but we spend it 7 days a week. I just put one up yesterday, which was a very interesting, simple little cartoon about credit cards, which I think hopefully you'll read it and be inspired to use them a little bit less and save your money a little bit more. Most of my, actually, next slide, please. Most of my, can you read that? Just joking. Most of my customer engagement on Facebook actually doesn't happen on my own Facebook page. It happens on ING Direct's page, which is called Superstar Saver. That's where we have a community of people who interact with our business, and I'm a player in that, in that discussion. Our customers have an awful lot to say about our business, and often have very valid, well, always have very valid comments and questions. And in this example, we announced a rebrand where we were changing some of our branding attributes as I would say we were evolving some of the elements of our brand. And some of our customers really didn't understand why we had done the change in some of our messaging. And I think it was great to hear some of the feedback directly from our customers. And it was also a great opportunity for me to explain our strategy directly, why it is that we had done that, how this is actually going to benefit customers. So I think it's also a wonderful opportunity to interact and explain some of your rationale behind some of the decisions that you made. Next slide, please. You know what I really enjoy about social media also is how loyal our customers can be. Many, many times in our use of social media, we find that if one customer is upset or doesn't understand, or it may be new to us and is disappointed, we often find hordes of other customers will come to our rescue well before we have the ability to answer ourselves. And you can imagine how powerful that is to have someone make a complaint about something and have other customers reach in and try and help that person or try and explain their experience as opposed to us doing it. It actually gives a whole additional bit of credibility. And I think I also very much enjoy talking to our customers directly on Twitter. For some reason, Twitter is the place that I enjoy my activity and my interactions with people the most. And oftentimes I'm interacting directly with customers. And look, if a customer's right, they're right. In this case, no, back, that's okay. It was in this case. In this case, one customer was upset about having to send us a physical check in order to begin their relationship with us to open an account. And I'll be honest with you, I completely agree. It wasn't difficult to simply acknowledge that this customer was actually 100% right, and that there are some issues about the know your customer rules in this country that force us to do things that maybe aren't as progressive as we would like, but we're also really kicking in gear, changing to simplify the account opening process very much. And this is very common. About a year and a half ago, we launched our Thrive checking account, so our no-fee daily checking account. Mind you, we've opened over 150,000 of those accounts in a year. And our customers and the community played a very, very big role in the actual development of that product. And we actually gave it to 10,000 of our customers for 6 months before we actually launched that product to all Canadians. Next slide, please. Most recently, as you may have heard, ING Direct Canada so our shareholder decided to sell us to Scotiabank. And as expected, we knew that a lot of our customers would have a lot of questions, and I thought, as the leader of ING Direct, it was very, very important for me to share this news directly with our customers as soon as I possibly could. Even if I couldn't reveal all the details, if they needed to know that, as we always had, we have their back, their hard-earned money would continue to thrive with us, and I think more importantly, would continue to be safe. So I blogged my thoughts, and I continued to share through Twitter whatever news we could on all the social media platforms. I'm active in social media because demonstrating that our business is different than our competitors, that we are real people just like our customers, that to allow people into our business and even into my life is a competitive advantage for us. And at some point, I am certain that this will be a best practice and eventually even table stakes for running a successful business.
I recently saw this tweet by Tristan Bishop, which I think is incredibly insightful and accurate and also sad in some ways. The quote is this: "The modern customer can detect dishonesty. Truth is a competitive differentiator." So we've fallen as business and as leaders, we've fallen, I think, a long way where actually telling the truth is a differentiator. But I think that is a bit where we are today and why social media and transparency can be so important. And I believe this 100%. Honesty, transparency, authenticity, responsibility, accountability. Those are the results of the social business revolution that I think we're experiencing today. And the social network and the technology that facilitates it is the vehicle to achieve these results. And I really do think that's how businesses will win in the future. Just another subject. Now that 1 minute thing was always there, right? You didn't just put it there for me right now. Okay, all right, good. Uh-oh. I want to talk to a little bit about also if your leadership is uncomfortable with social media on the outside of the organization, a little bit about it for the inside of your organization. Imagine the more simple leadership challenge of just understanding what your employees are actually thinking. At ING Direct, we have about 1,100 employees, mostly in Toronto, but we have a big bilingual contact center in Moncton, and we've got our fantastic cafes in various cities. But imagine how powerful it is and how obvious it is for a leader to want to know what the heck is happening at the water cooler. What do employees really think? And what a wonderful and powerful tool for a CEO to actually know this. You know, if there's issues, if you change something on the compensation side, do people think it's fair? Do they understand it? Are you working your people too hard? How do people really feel about the last decision that you made? How do your employees really feel about the sale of your business to Scotiabank, for example? And any leader, I think, would want to know what their colleagues are thinking and would likely consider what, if anything, they can do to fix it or make it right if there's a problem. And remembering, in my own personal experience, half the time, it's whether you communicated it right in the first place and people actually understand it. So sometimes it's really just about, did you communicate it properly in the first place? I think to connect with employees and customers, we need to change our communication methods as well. And I think social media, you really do have choice. I mean, you have the choice to passively listen to what employees and customers think about you and your business, your products, your services, choices you've made. Or, like I just spent the last 20 minutes talking about, you can choose to be part of the conversation to help inform, educate, and teach people about what you do, what your objectives are, why you made a particular decision, what your company stands for, and how your business simplifies their lives or changes their lives in a positive way. And I think, and better yet, if you're engaged with customers and prospective customers in a meaningful dialogue about their lives, about their challenges, their interests and concerns, you can build a community of trust, of loyalty, and I think possibly in time, true ambassadors for your brand, which I think is certainly what we have always been trying to do. And I think we're seeing most of this recently in our fun ambassador program that our team developed. We call it the Orange Scarf, a real sexy name. We started giving out scarves in July, so people are like, scarf in July? Doesn't make any sense, but still, people want the scarf. So here's a picture of me. Oh, there you go. Well done. Here's a picture of me actually with the scarf on our Tumblr page, and a couple of pictures our customers have sent in. I think next slide. No, you go back. The orange scarf, you know, for many of our ambassadors and for many of our employees is really, it's an honor. It's a symbol of being a true ambassador online, and I think it's awarded to our loyal customers and our employees who consistently engage with ING Direct in a social way, you know, by answering questions, providing feedback, or even just sharing the orange love, we like to say. It's been a lot of fun seeing these pictures and seeing our customers and employees share the scarves and their stories around the scarves. And we're starting to see a lot more people who are interested in earning them. So my advice to you, if you think this year's scarf, so every year there's going to be a new one, you might want to start being really nice to @SuperstarSaver if you want to be in the scarf club. So listen, guys, what I shared with you today are really just some of the reasons why I fit social media into my daily activities. Social media makes a difference, in my view, in the lives of Canadians and absolutely in the lives of our business. You've heard my thoughts that I think the future is a social one, and social business will be a best practice in the years ahead. There are many predictions about business will look like, whether that's, Scott Thompson of PayPal said that by 2015 he thinks the traditional wallet will become a thing of the past. Gartner recently said, an IT research firm said that information smart businesses will increase IT spending per head by 60% by 2015. But I think social business is the insight that is so important. A business is where all employees and their leadership will need to be social and will utilize social media in one form or another. I think that really is the future of business. People have always relied on the opinions of their friends, of their peers, people that are like them in order to make their decisions. Whether they're at the kitchen table, they're at the hockey rink, they're at wherever it is that they worship. How people work and make decisions is not new in any way, but technology and social networks has allowed this type of sharing to happen faster with a broader group of people, irregardless of where you happen to live and outside of traditional boundaries. And I think social media really is putting a tremendous amount of pressure on organizations to commit to the concept of transparency and accountability. So, on closing, and before hopefully we have a little bit of time for Q&A, as a leader of a business, I think the main priority of any leader, including myself, is to lead. And what leaders don't do speaks as loudly as the things they choose to do. So whether CEOs are participating in social media or not, either way, they're sending a clear message. The message is to their customers, to their employees. It's been almost 4 years since I started my Twitter account and became a member of the social media community. It didn't take much convincing from my team whatsoever. I think the main reason I personally decided to engage at the time in this new form of communication every day is because I want to stay connected. I want a seat at the dinner table when people are talking about their finances, what they think about their jobs, the things that they're talking about at the water cooler. I want to be there to weigh in and to have our business and our brand be a part of the decision-making process for people. What I like to say is leaders always find time to do strategic things and important things. And in my view, social media is something that I have decided is both strategic and both important. So I'll end by saying thank you guys all for your attention, for coming to all the social media events that you did over the last couple of days. And I am very excited, because I'm going to stay a little bit to hear from Shane and Eric, who I think will have a lot more to add on the topic. So if we have a little more time, I would love to have some questions from you. 5 for Q&A. I was hoping for a little longer. Yeah. Did you guys all hear the question? The question is, if you had to pick one benefit to ING Direct of sort of humanizing our brand, what is that one benefit? Is that?
To humanize the CEO for ING, what is the direct benefit to them?
Yeah, so the fact that I have put myself out there as a human, as the leader of our business, what is the number one benefit from that? I think the answer, it's difficult to put it into one, but the answer for me, I think, is pretty simple. And it has a lot to do with our industry, so it may not apply to someone else. When you look at our industry, I mean, it's a little different here in the West, but for the most part, the banking industry is run by, 5 or 6 big banks. They are 180 years old. 180 years old, okay? And they act in a certain way, and they've always acted in a certain way, and they can evolve only so quickly. Putting a human face on the leadership of a bank, the primary asset a bank has is trust, right? So by putting myself out there as a representative for our brand, I think, is very, very distinguishing from our competitors. It helps us build trust very, very much more quickly. And I think it's very, very difficult for our competitors to copy because they've got a lot of history that they have to undo. So I think those have been the primary benefits. Not to mention, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, question up there?
You talked a lot about business to consumer. What about business to business? How do you see that as being beneficial for a business talking to other companies versus the consumer?
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, you read leadership books and all those types of things. I mean, knowing your customer, whether it's a retail customer, whether it's a business customer, whatever it happens to be. We have business customers too. I mean, we do business savings, and I think we're somewhat active with our business customers on social media as well. So I think social business has broader applications, you know, from a business-to-business perspective. Now, we focus primarily on retail and the consumers because that's who we are. But I think much of what I said is equally applicable from a business-to-business perspective. I think customers of all nature are changing their view about who it is that they want to interact with. And I think to connect with your customers in this way is something that's important. You listen to like the older school of leaderships and those books, you know, and they talk about knowing your customer, and the CEO should figure out who the big customers are and go visit them and things like that. And I think there's many more ways, and I think social is one way to do it, to not just interact with your 5 biggest customers that bring in your 5 biggest revenue, but to actually reach out to all customers, whether they're business customers or sort of more retail individual consumers.
Next question right here.
Hey, great presentation. Thank you for being here. Question is, what's your favorite part about being a CEO and still being social? Like, how do you evangelize your employees to be social as well?
I think that's an easy question for me. Is typically CEOs don't. It's difficult for us to be on the front line. Fighting alongside of our employees. So our front line is the people who work on the website, click to chat, our call center, our cafes, and those types of things. And I'll tell you, I get tons and tons of reward by dealing with customer complaints on my own, wowing customers myself, which is what I ask our employees to do every day, and to have our employees watch me do it or see me do it. I think is extremely rewarding. I'll tell you just a real quick story. I was in I had the privilege of being invited to the grand opening of the new Batman movie earlier in the summer, because I know someone, I saw the IMAX seating, and there was a party beforehand, you know, drinking a couple beers and that. And this woman who didn't even know me was telling the story over there about how she had difficulty getting approved for a mortgage at ING Direct, and how she complained to the CEO, and how the CEO on a Saturday responded to her probably within 2 hours, introduced her to someone who was able to reconcile the issue, and within a couple weeks were able to fund the mortgage. And she was telling this, she had control of the corner of the room, telling the story about how I helped her open an account, and she was being an ambassador for our business. And for me, I think that was very rewarding. That's what our people do in the cafe. People in the cafes do every single day. That's the people that our people on the phones do every single day. So for me to get my duff off of the out of my desk, I don't have an office, and actually win with our business and our people every day, I think is extremely rewarding for me, and I think they enjoy it too.
One more question here. I'm going to have to pick one, and then we have to wrap. I saw your hand first, Nick.
Should make them fight for it.
Hi, Peter. I've been following you for a while because banking, geez, compliance, regulators, peering over your shoulder as you're tweeting for you to press send?
Yeah. So the question is, I'm in a highly regulated business. I mean, it's even more regulated than you think, right? I mean, I got regulators here, but my current owner, and it will apply to my new owner, they're publicly held. They've got SEC rules. They're publicly traded company. So how do we do it? This is what I will tell you, that they're watching me every single day. I know it, right? They don't say it, but they are. And I think it's an avalanche out of control now at this point. And we didn't have hiccups along the way. And I think we were very thoughtful about how we went and did about it. I mean, like, for example, if you take selling out of your social media activity, you've solved 3/4 of the problem, okay? Particularly in financial services, right? So if we try and sell you a mutual fund, then we're in big trouble, okay? So we really do talk about our business and our brand and our products, and it is really, really not very much about selling, which helps a lot. We have people like Mina and a variety of different people in the organization who've been with us for a while, who their personal values align with our values, and they have a good sense of how to behave in that place. Look, I tried as late as possible in my relationship, and thank you, Shane, for not mentioning this, but I did start my career as a lawyer, and my first job at ING Direct was the legal counsel. So I do have some insights into what the rules are and those types of things, but I don't tell people that because you don't need to have those insights. And I am the CEO, so my compliance guys, they don't give me too much of a hard time. We'll see in the new world how that changes. But it is a delicate dance, but I don't think it's a common excuse, and I think it really is an excuse that we can work our way through. No, not specifically. It applies, though, in all media, right? So, like, I did get it. So last week, Bloomberg did an interview with me, and I was talking about our old shareholder and our new shareholder, and I got calls from both shareholders. I mean, imagine how that was on the same day. So whether you're in social or traditional media, and the one thing about traditional media is you can't even necessarily control what gets said, right, at all. You can offer your piece, and they'll write what they want to write, although media's been pretty good to ING Direct, I think. Anyway, I think we're out of time, and so thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.